All right, my beautiful people. So today we're going to talk about data connection in ethnography research, and that's our research project, essentially what we're doing in our class. And I figured this would be a good opportunity for us to go through things that we don't necessarily always go through. And I feel like there's a lot of questions regarding that. So let's talk about that in particular, so it kind of makes a little bit more sense. These are the things we're going to go through. We're going to talk about importance of data collection. Some other things might be a little more review, but just bear with me. Types of online communication, ethical consideration, data collection method, data recording techniques, managing data set, ensuring and data quality, case studies, and best practices and future trends. Give me a second. Let me close the door. That's right there. Oh, sure. I think we're good. All right. So ethnography is essentially ethnography adapted for online environments. And that really just allows researchers to study social interactions in a digital culture as they unfold online. So it's particularly useful in understanding how individuals communicate, how they build relationships, and even shape identities in virtual communities. There's a lot of things that we're able to understand and study based on ethnography research. Even when we talk about the idea that researchers have been able to find that you can find a lot more narcissism in online cultures, or narcissists have a bigger space to be in the online communities, that's actually where we're able to find that through ethnography research. Things like the fact that anonymity allows people to behave and change their comments and say things that they normally wouldn't say. Those kind of research, we're able to find out data like this through ethnography research as well. And so, actually, give me a second. Sorry, they're talking downstairs. So. So a lot of these data and things like that, you're able to find through ethnography research. So there's really a lot of things that we're able to look at because of this type of research. So unlike this traditional ethnography research, which is really just field-based, really time-consuming, ethnography offers a more fluid and accessible approach by leveraging wealth of data generated in the digital space. And so the purpose of these ethnography research is to really explore and interpret online behavior, not merely from quantitative standpoint, but also through a qualitative lens. Oh my God. Okay. Everyone can hear me okay? Yeah. Thank you. All right, so we're looking at, obviously, as we've mentioned before, we're looking at online forums, we're looking at social media groups, we're looking at gaming communities, and other congregations. So researchers really here, the purpose is to uncover rich narratives and insight that are both academic and applied research. So we're not just furthering the field, we're also furthering our understanding of humanity. Again, finding out, for example, that more narcissistic prevalent behaviors are online is something that, as you navigate your online presence, you can think of as you interact with people online. You could also keep that in mind. So it can be applied to our day-to-day lives as well. And the whole narcissistic thing is not necessarily a marketing idea, but it still stands. So the idea still stands. So applications in ethnography are really diverse. In marketing particularly, it helps brands understand consumer perceptions, unmet needs, and engagement patterns. So here, sociologists, anthropologists, and marketers can use this digital social movement to be able to understand society a little bit. Right. Can I ask for a favor? If for those of you who are here with me online today, make sure that you are on mute, please. Unless you want to say something and ask questions, then please go ahead and do that as well. So unmute yourself at that time. All right, so I think we're all familiar with ethnography research at this point. So that was a brief little review. And now let's talk about the importance of data collection. So data collections in correspondence with ethnography forms the foundation on which all research insights are built. So without this robust and relevant data, the interpretations made in ethnography research would lack credibility. And so you need and depth. So you need it not just because you are gathering information, but also to ensure that the data collected is relevant, authentic, and capable of providing a comprehensive view of online communities being studied. So understanding the behaviors through which data collection happens is pivotal. You want to be able to assess what's going on and figure out its importance. So really what it does is it allows researchers to identify patterns and trends that are not always evident through surface level observations. So for example, by analyzing user interactions over time, researchers can determine recurring themes, they can look at emotional triggers, and they can even shift in sentiments within online communities. So the idea here is to be able to understand that online community because it's so rich in data. So as for marketers, you can always look at your strategies for consumer behaviors. You can look at things like fostering deeper engagement and trust. And so data collection is also able to influence the strategies in business and in research context. So it's not just about let me become a researcher, it's more like how can I apply it as a marketer or as a business professional or as a business owner and so forth. So within the context of business, it can guide the product development, it can guide communication strategies and user experience design. So practical as well as academic. So obviously there are different types of online communities and each one has its own dynamics and its own characteristics. So forums and message boards, for instance, they are probably the oldest type of digital communities. And so they've been around for a very long time, almost as long as the internet has been around. And they often are very topic specific and cater to a specific niche audience. And that really makes them incredibly ideal for in-depth discussions and focused research on specialized subject. So whatever your specialized subject is, you can go through that and be able to understand your subject a little bit more. So researchers here studying forums, they can really just gain insight into highly engaged discussions. And through that, they offer or they capture, so the forums offer or the researchers can capture deeply rooted opinions and uncensored user perspectives. And a very big portion of it, again, is this whole concept of anonymity allows people to be able to respond in a very raw manner. Sometimes that can be a very negative thing, but for our purposes, it can actually be something very useful because we get the raw, unfiltered opinion, and then we can look through it and find out what's actually being what's actually happening or what's actually being said through the things that people don't normally say. So that's for the forums and messages. You have other platforms like Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, which is now X, right? Twitter is now X, not Instagram. And they are a completely different dynamic and they are more diverse. They have a broader audience. They allow researchers to observe how people interact in real time, how trends develop, and how content goes viral. And that's what we really have to look at and try to capture as well if we are looking for customer and consumer behavior. So the visual nature of the platform, like Instagram, what it does is it adds another layer of analysis, really providing a more in-depth insight, not just in textual communication, whereas like the forums you have, you just have the text, right? You have something and it's an idea or discussion or whatever. Instagram adds visuals. So it helps create a visual narrative, it helps create aesthetics, and it helps create brand imagery. Blogs and microblogs are also a good way to represent a more personalized form of online communities. So personal blogs often act as individual narratives, and that is a really good way that allows researchers to study subjective experiences. So that would be things like what you would get in a one-on-one interview in an ethnographic research. You can get you may be able to get through an ethnographic research, and those are the most um, in-depth interviews through the blogs and the microblogs. So the idea is this data is already available. We don't have to go and recreate it. It's already there. It's already public. If we gather that data, we'll be able to understand what people are really saying. And so not just go with what they're saying, but take it a step further, which would be the selection of certain few to follow. But because their narrative is already there, you don't have to um, you don't have to necessarily go through the effort and the expenses of doing that one-on-one. So that's the good. Okay. Right. Then we have this microblogs, and microblogs are things like X or Twitter, and they really just provide a glimpse into real-time interactions with shorter communication bursts. And so the virtual world and really relies on this microblogs for opinions. If you want to hear someone's opinion, go on Twitter or go on X, and you'll be able to find quick interactions. And if you collect that data in bulk, then you'll be able to really understand what people are saying. So for your project, as you go through these data collection phases, you want and data analysis phases, you want to look at the different types of platforms to understand different things. And if you want to take it a step further, you'd move from one platform to the next down in your understanding. So maybe in your preliminary research, you look for forums, then you go into, or maybe in social media, then you go to forums, and then you go to microblogs and blogs. And so it depends on what you're trying to do. And then the last one we have is the gaming communities. And so they offer an immersive environment where users just really engage with that digital identity. Creating communities requires really a unique approach to data collection, and it shows the variety of forms of communication and engagement. So you want to be cognizant of that, and you want to walk into each platform knowing these things, knowing the different things that you can, the different types of data that you can collect from one platform versus the other. How are we doing so far? Any questions? If you don't have any questions, you could just give me a thumbs up. That would be great because I can't see it. All right. Everybody's good. Okay. Fantastic. Thank you, Martha. All right, so now let's look at the ethical considerations. Ethical considerations are very crucial or critical in ethnography research. So, as researchers are entering digital spaces where users may not be aware that they're being observed, informed consent becomes a challenge. So, as the boundaries of public and private spaces are often blurred in online settings, we have to be aware of these things. So, you have to decide whether you are going to announce your presence or just remain hidden, depending on the context and the ethical guidelines. And so, you can you can announce it or you can remain hidden, but you have to take a look at those ethical considerations because the stuff is already public and it's already available. You can also look at things like changing the names of the people, and so that there's anonymity as well. Which then leads us to anonymity. And it's a very big concern. So protecting the identities of community members is not just an ethical obligation, but also essential for maintaining trust within the community. So you have to be, as a researcher, you have to take steps to make the data anonymous. And you have to make sure that the identities through the information presented in the finding don't reveal the identities of the real people that you have collected. And this is not just to preserve privacy, but also it aligns with the ethical research practices that respect the participants' rights, especially if they don't not aware that they are being studied. And transparency in research is in research objectives and methods is equally important. So researchers just clearly communicate their intentions to the community members if they decide to reveal their presence. And so this openness just helps build the trust and can lead to richer data. And so we have to figure out kind of the balance between the two. So selecting the online communities, you want to look at, there are certain things that we want to look at. So you're looking at, first and foremost, you're looking at relevance to the research objectives. So the chosen community should really align with the study's goals, whether that is understanding consumer behavior, exploring substructures or subcultures, analyzing the discourse pattern. So that means analyzing how people speak to each other, which is something that we talked about in at the beginning of this course as well. So for example, if the researcher aims to study vegan subculture, it makes sense to engage with vegan forums. It makes sense to look at Instagram hashtags that have these posts, and it makes sense to look at Facebook groups dedicated to plant-based lifestyle. The second thing that you want to look at as you're selecting your communities is activity level. So active communities, which is characterized by frequent interactions and a large number of participants, those communities, they provide richer data because there's more availability. So the ongoing dialogue allows researchers to observe dynamic discussions, changing sentiments, and emerging trends. So more niche, less active communities should be overlooked if they offer, should not be overlooked if they offer a insight that aligns with the research objectives, but you want to look for places that have rich data or a bunch of these little niches that are less active so that you can have good data as well. Accessibility to the community also matters. So some examples of online communities are open to the public, while others require memberships, approvals, or invitations to join. So a researcher needs to navigate these barriers thoughtfully. So you have to ensure that access is gained ethically. So you're not necessarily lying or whatever the case is, and you're not just hiding, kind of like hiding in the bushes. You join them with ethics. And you have to understand that the cultural context is equally crucial. And so you have to be aware as a researcher, that the community's language may be different than your own. The norms and the values to interpret the data accurately and respectfully is needed to understand that community as well. Okay, so you have to be aware of what's going on in that community. Questions so far? All right. All right, 1 second. I lost this. Am I missing that? I feel like I'm missing that. Sorry, my I don't know how my stuff gets mixed up, but nevertheless, my notes got mixed up. That's all right. 1 second. Okay, so participant observation, I think we've talked about this heavily enough throughout the semester, but nevertheless, within ethnographic research, we're talking about passive observation, which really just involves monitoring interactions with community without direct engaging in the activities or conversation. And so essentially you're just watching. So you always remain as an outsider, which is really easy to do in ethnographic research. You avoid influencing the natural side of things. It's still sharing, right? It's still sharing this. Right. You guys can see the PowerPoint? Because now I can't see what's being shared. Okay, perfect. All right, so again, so for example, in the social media context that we have, passive observation would be lurking on a Facebook group or online forum, or simply reading posts and comments without contributing to the actual discussion. Sorry, this approach is really unobtrusive, so you're not really obstructing anything, you're not joining in. And what really that does is allows for a broad understanding of surface level interactions. It may not be a deep context or insight into motivations and internal dynamics. And so, but it can really provide a way to infer meaning from what you see. And that's a good thing, but it can also lead to misunderstanding and incomplete interpretation. The other portion of it is active method, and within these communities, you could be the one asking questions, you can be the one posting, you can be the one interacting in real time with the members, or posting something that you may think is thought-provoking and seeing what happened, how are people going to respond, and so forth. So if you're studying, for example, an online gaming community, active participant might involve joining a guild or playing games with the members, engaging in their discussions. And so really what that does, it enables you to understand the community. And so the main challenge with active participation here is that it risks influencing the group. So the other one, you don't influence the group. For this one, you actually do influence the group. And that's the issue behind it. All right. So types of ethnographic data, we're going to start with the textual ones. The textual data is posts, comments, direct messages, and other written content within an online community. So textual data is usually the most common of all digital communications, and it offers insight to how members express their thoughts, opinions, and emotions. And so researchers here, they often analyze textual data really to be able to identify and understand the recurring themes, the sentiments, and the language or jargon specific to that community. We talked about before how millennials and Gen Z use emojis differently. So this would fall under that same context. It would fall under what kind of information or what kind of language is being used, and how is that telling um, of that community. So, for example, if you're analyzing the comments section of a blog or forum, that can reveal to you the user's feedback. It can reveal to you the experiences and even the conflict within the community. If you look at a lot of these things that posts that go viral, if you start looking at the comments, you'll realize, oh, this is the overarching thought of people who are pro this issue, and this is the overarching sentiment of people who are against this issue as well. And the idea is also that within that as well, the textual data can also be analyzed qualitatively to understand the underlying meanings to these things, or it can also be used quantitatively to measure word frequency, sentiment scores, and topic trends. And so while you see the text, and it's a written text, right? It's a comment or whatever, you can find how many times people say, I love it, or amazing, or get out of here, or whatever the case is that you're looking for. So you can turn it into something from qualitative to quantitative. The other type of data that you would see is images, videos, GIFs, and memes, and they all fall under the category of visual data. And this is really, really important in ethnographic research because it often carries significant cultural and emotional meanings that words alone may not convey. So, for example, when you look at memes, they're actually a form of social commentary and can provide insight into collective humor, attitudes, and values with communities. So, when you look at these videos or reels or YouTube shorts or whatever, the ones that say POV, that is really giving us a lot of insight on a subculture within a community. And so we can take that video and really understand what the community is trying to say. And based on the likes and the interactions and the share, you could really understand or come to an understanding that, oh, there's an agreement among that subgroup that really believes this as well. And so analyzing visual data requires an understanding of symbols and signs to decode that underlying message. And so visual analysis can be complex a little bit, right? Text is more straightforward, but visuals can have multiple interpretations based on cultural context. So it is very much necessary for you as a researcher to understand the specific cultural nuances of the people that you are trying to reach and the nuances of that community. And then we have interaction data, and those are things like likes, shares, retweet, reactions, and other forms of engagement metrics. So interaction data is often used to measure the level of engagement within the community and provide a quantitative indicator of the topic's popularity or relevance. So if you want to see a relevance, so if you want to see how good a topic is, how relevant it is, how important it is, how divisive it is, you would look at how much it's being shared and what is the true interest of that community. Okay, so research can really just track the influence or resonating factors within that community. And so you're looking at interactions data to understand which topic, posts, or media types are most engaging and providing a way to engage community interest and social dynamics. And then the last type of data that we're looking at is metadata. And metadata refers to data about data. So you're looking at things like timestamps, you're looking at user profiles, you're looking at other engagement metrics. And that metadata provides a framework for understanding the context of the interactions, such as when that conversation took place, who was involved, and the frequency of interactions. And you're looking at these things because they help provide context. Is this conversation happening in the middle of a workday where people are supposed to be working, but instead they're on their phones? Is this interactions happening after midnight where people are supposed to be asleep? And but the majority of that community is awake. So you know that that specific subgroup is a night owl, or maybe they are, it's nighttime here, but it turns out as you look through these metadata of who and what and where, you're able to find out, oh, well, this content, while it was posted in California, it's actually resonating with people in India or in China, which then tells us that that timestamp difference makes sense because that's when they are awake. So we really use here in ethnographic research, we use metadata to identify patterns over time, to track user behaviors, and even to determine how online interactions align with external events. So things like product launches or societal changes as well. And so metadata is less about the content itself and more about the context in which this interaction is happening. And so what you're trying to do is map the behavioral trends and understand temporal dynamics within the communities. Any questions so far? How are we feeling? You guys are feeling good? Okay, I'm going to assume that that's the case. Okay. So, archival data is a method that involves collecting existing data from past interactions. So old forum threads, historical social media posts, or website content. And you could often look at the internet time machine to be able to find, let me see if I can find that. So you can look at things like, I don't know if anyone's seen this. I don't know if anyone's seen this before, but you can look at a certain website, what it was before. So let's say MySpace. So that would be archival data. So this was how MySpace was used now, but then you go back to, let's say, 2007. Let's see if we can open this. There's a timestamp here. There are different snapshots. So we'll take us to the website as it was at that particular time. Let's see what it does. So that would be a form of archival data. And this is it for you. This was MySpace at that time. So if you, let's say you move forward, right? So books, whatever, I don't know if it'll still work, but that would give you, oh, sorry. That will give you that platform at that time. So that would be archival data. Is there another one that you guys would like to look at? Any particular website of interest that we should look through that has gone through a significant change? Okay, so that's what happened to MySpace in 2013. Right, and then if we go now, you can see how that space has differed. And of course, you can go through forums, you can go through things like that, find the snapshots, and that would be your archival data as well. Find the spot. Okay. All right. So here you're looking at within the archival data, you're looking at how long-term trends and patterns within a community have done that. And you can obviously look through archives by going through going backwards in posts so long ago that that would also give you an archive of what was happening 10 years ago on Facebook or 15 years ago on Facebook in that same community if it's that old versus now. Okay. Real-time observations requires monitoring ongoing discussions and events as they happen. So real-time observation allows researchers to capture the immediacy and spontaneity of online users and online interactions. So you're looking at insights at current topics, trends, and user behaviors. So if you're looking within the archival stuff as well, or if you're looking to compare what was it then versus now, you can take a look at I know there's someone that was looking at One Direction. There was a group that was looking at One Direction. So what you can do is you can go through really, really early posts from One Directions when they first started and how many people were interacting with them. You can look at when they broke up, and then you can look at now. So it could be a comparative study between the interactions of these of people. Okay, so how are they still relevant based on that? So that's the next one that you have is interviews and surveys, where you can engage with community members directly through interviews or surveys provided that provide specific insight on their experiences, motivations, and perceptions. And you can do that through video, through call, through chat, through direct messages, and really anything that's like that. And that's kind of up to you to do that. So there's a bigger platform. And then digital trace data is analyzing the digital footprint left by users. So things like browsing histories, search behaviors, engagement patterns. You can get this through Google Trends. You'll be able to find the metrics behind or the analytics, the numbers behind them, and then you can figure out where to go from there based on those words. And so digital trace data also provides an insight into user behavior beyond what is explicitly shared. So often what they do is they provide this comprehensive view of interactions and preferences. And this is particularly useful in understanding the user's journey, things like how much or how consumers navigate through websites or app. And it raises a significant, the only thing is that it would raise a significant privacy concern. And you really have to look at ethics when you are dealing with digital traces. Next up, we have these passive observation techniques, and lurking is one of them. Lurking just involves reading discussion groups, comments, posts without participating, and it allows you to observe authentic interactions and behavior without altering the community dynamic. And it's useful for studying communities that are sensitive to outsiders or those with strict entry requirements, things like that. And so the main benefit of lurking is that it maintains the natural flow of interaction, but it can be limited because it prevents the researcher from asking follow-up questions or clarifying ambiguous statements. Okay. And it can also be a little shallow in understanding if the observers cannot access private conversations or deeper discussions. Martha, did you look at how Instagram changed? Is that what the comment was? I just saw that one. But if you're looking like, yeah, through Time Machine, you'll be able to see the difference. I think I have had I created my Instagram when I did my first TV show, and that was I think that was 2012. And so for me, I kind of watched Instagram grow. And so, yeah, there's a significant difference in what it was before and then after when Meta bought it and things like that. So I don't know if you found anything interesting when you looked through that time machine. Yeah. The other thing that we found, or that we can use in passive observation, is content analysis. And it really just involves systematically analyzing communication content. So things like posts, comments, and messages. And so content analysis can be conducted through quantitative, so counting the frequency of certain words or phrases, or qualitative, just things like identifying themes, narratives, and or sentiments. And so it's particularly useful for understanding dominant topics, sentiments, and communication styles within the community. And so content analysis is a powerful tool for identifying recurring patterns and topics, but it also requires this very careful approach to coding and to interpreting data as well. And then the last one that we have is network analysis, and it focuses on studying the relationship and interactions among the users. And so these are all different fields. They can also be seen as different fields within research, by the way. And so here you can examine how users connect with each other, identify influencers and hubs of activities and clusters within the community. So for example, if you are looking at a network analysis of X or Twitter, the interactions can reveal which users are central to the conversations or which hashtags are most commonly associated with a topic. So what this does is that this technique, it really helps researchers understand the social structure and the power dynamic of that community. Questions so far? Okay. All right, so active participation strategies. Introduction, so presenting yourself appropriately is the first step to active participations. You can introduce yourself to the community, you can clarify your purpose, and set clear boundaries in many communities. So transparency about your role as a researcher can help build trust, making members more open to share as a researcher. Because they understand that you are a researcher, and it builds trust, making members more open to sharing that information and so forth. And then the next one is engagement. So actually contributing to the discussion authentically. And again, the key word here is authentically. It has to be something that is genuine, that adds value to the conversation rather than just extracting data. And so that would be that. Building rapport with that community member is essential to data collection as well, if you want to do it in an active way. So this involves consistent, respectful interactions that demonstrate the researcher's interest in the community's well-being. And so this often leads to a more in-depth conversation, private messages, or even off-platforms interactions that provide richer data. And so that's something very, very important. And then the last one that we have for this one is data collection. And so gathering insight through interactions is the primary goal of active communication or active participation. That's the point of the entire thing. And so here you are trying to get access to nuanced, context-rich data that passive methods might miss. So researchers must really be mindful of ethical considerations, ensuring that informed consent and respecting participants' privacy at all time is the highest thing that they can do. Cool. Questions so far? How do we feel? Feel good, everybody? Okay, so we already went through a little bit of the archival data. Let me see if I can find the rest of my notes. 1 second. So again, archival data, you're looking at the archives of things. You're looking at what happened in the past. You're looking at the idea is to be able to analyze trends over time. What changed? Is this something that we can compare? Is there something that we can understand a little bit more? And so that's that. Part of the challenge is that you may have a data overload because there's tremendous amount of data. Let's say you're comparing something that happened 10, 15 years ago with now, that it may be a lot, right? It may be data overload, and data relevance and quality is also an issue as well. Okay. All right. So to expand a little bit more on interviews and surveys, interviews here can be structured or they can be semi-structured or unstructured at all. Structured interviews, this is again when you have that interaction. If you're an active participant and you have that interaction and you're doing a video call or whatever the case is, right? So structured interviews have a predetermined questions and are best for gathering consistent responses across participants, making them useful for comparative analysis. Semi-structured interviews allows for the flexibility and adapting questions based on the flow of the conversation. And unstructured interviews are more exploratory. So they encourage free expression, a deeper insight into individual perspectives. And that can be conducted through email, through chat, through video calls. And it really just offers a unique advantage because it's kind of like the world is your oyster. You want to engage in these things, you are welcome to, in essence. So video calls capture nonverbal cues. Email, however, allows for participants to provide thoughtful, reflective responses. The other form of data collection would be surveys, and they focus on quantitative and qualitative data at the same time. So designing the survey should really emphasize clarity, consciousness, relevance to ensure a very high response rate within the community. I do not think I brought my water bottle. All right. And then the last thing that you want to do is considerations. So incentives can encourage participants to join in, especially when targeting communities that are not highly responsive. So you want to think of offering something valuable like access to research results or tokens of appreciation or things of that nature. All right, data recording techniques. We talked a little bit about this before. You can manually record the data. So you're taking notes, you're capturing screenshots and or screen recordings. So you're noting information such as tone, context shift, or sudden emotional expression in a conversation, sudden changes in emotional expression. And so this is particularly useful for analyzing how the digital culture shapes our discourse over time. You also have automated tools like large-scale scraping softwares that are essential for large-scale data collection and enabling researchers to extract a vast amount of data very quickly. For those of you who don't know, there's a lot of different extensions that you can add on Chrome and other platforms like that would allow you to scrape data from different places, data that is publicly available from different places. So things like emails, things like categories of kinds of Instagram's accounts and things like that. You can easily scrape. You can scrape comments. There's just so many ways to do this, or to use automated tools to be able to do that. A lot of the sorry. A lot of the platforms also offer built-in data export features that allow researchers to download user interactions, comments, and engagement metric in a structured format. So in spreadsheets or CSV files, and I always want to say SCVs, but CSV files. And maybe I don't know if people would do this, but I haven't tried this one yet. But maybe if you're looking at certain influencers within a particular field, maybe super fans of someone, maybe you can go and say, hey, I'm doing this research on this topic. Would you mind providing me with the metrics for your profile, right? For your public profile, and then blur out the names or whatever. And so if they say yes, you can have access to that data, and that data is there with you. And then you want to organize your data effectively. We talked a lot about coding a lot in the previous session, so we're not going to talk about it really here, but you have to do it, and you have to do it correctly. Okay. And so the next thing that we have is managing large data sets. And this is where the richness of the research lies. And so data storage solutions can be useful. And so for handling large volumes of data, so researchers often use cloud storage solutions or secure databases, or even for our purposes, you can use Dropbox, you can use Google Drive, or whatever other things that the university might offer for you to keep collection of that. We talked about different softwares that you can use in order to be able to do this. We'll use one, or we'll try one out next time we are in the classroom as well. And data reduction is filtering out things and being able to manage that data, focusing only on key themes and synthesizing information that aligns with the research questions. So for example, in Netnographic study on a fitness community, data reduction might involve focusing specifically on discussions about workout routines and filtering out unrelated conversations. And so that would be your way of reducing data so that you're not overwhelmed with all the things that are there. Data analysis methods. Again, we talked about this at length in another session, but really we're looking at thematic codes, content analysis, and discourse analysis. And so thematic codes help us understand the themes that are there, and where content analysis focus on the frequency and the context of certain words and phrases. And then discourse analysis goes a step further and examines how language is used to construct reality within the community and reveal the ideologies, the power structures, and the cultural norms of that place. And then quantitative analysis, you're looking at data, right? You're looking at numbers. So statistical frequencies, counts, correlation analysis, and things of that sort. And then you have a mixed method where you use the combination of quantitative and qualitative data analysis. All right, so ensuring data quality. So you want to make sure that that your data is actually valid, and that there's no discrepancy in what you're saying, and it really represent that community. You also want to fact check. Just because someone says something doesn't mean it is factual. So we want to make sure that there is, that you're able to fact check these things and be able to ensure that the data is actually truthful and it is doing what it's supposed to be doing as well. Second. Okay. Computer is freezing. So you want to be able to see the validity of that. You want to make sure that your data is also reliable in a lot of different ways as well. So we have to have consistent data collection procedures. You have to have a way that doesn't say it's not random. You're not just randomly collecting. You have a method and a procedure through which you are collecting your data. And then, sorry, one more second. You guys can still see the, okay. I think you guys can see this again. Okay, so, and then the last thing that we have is triangulation, which is a powerful technique for confirming finding by using multiple data sources or method. And really, it enhances data quality by providing more comprehensive perspectives. So for example, if you're studying online communities, triangulation insights from forum discussions, direct interviews, and engagement metric offers a broader understanding of user behaviors and attitude. So you're not only looking for credibility, but also you are helping mitigate biases that arise from relying on a single source. So if you're looking just one single source of data, so just this Facebook group, that might not be great. Triangulation, you're looking for multiple sources so that it all comes together and it all helps you form this idea that you have. All right, let's look closer at what triangulation data collection is. And here we're looking at information from different sources, so things like user comments, surveys, and analytics. And so this approach is more of a well-rounded view that helps identify the patterns that may not be visible in one singular source. So you're looking at 3 different ways or 4 different ways of doing this. The first is investigator triangulation. Sorry, so data triangulation is the first one. Investigator triangulation involves multiple researchers contributing to the analysis. So what that does is that you have multiple perspectives, and that minimizes biases from or the ability to interpret that data so that it becomes more robust. And diversity in that also is very important. So having people with different beliefs and different ideologies come together to understand one singular topic. So maybe you have someone who is very much on politically right and another person who's very much on politically left, and they both come together to study the issue of abortion, for example, or anything like that. And so when you bring them both together and they're looking at the same data set, they may look at it differently from depending on the political side that they're on. But when you bring it together and when you bring in that those different perspectives from multiple different places, then you're able to understand the issue a lot more profoundly rather than one singular side running that investigator triangulation or that experiment or that study. Theory triangulation entails applying different theoretical frameworks to the same to the data, which can help highlight the various dimensions of the data. So you're looking at interpreting consumer behaviors through both psychological and sociological lens, and that gives you a more comprehensive understanding of motivation rather than just doing one or the other. And then the last one is methodological triangulation, and that is just using different methods like surveys along with focus groups and strengthening or addressing limitations inherent in any single method. So that's what we're looking at. Let me see how many we saw. All right, so limitations is access. Some limitations are access and restrictions. You may not have access to closed or private groups. There may be ethical barriers to entry, data overload, again, filtering through an overwhelming amount of data, ethical dilemmas as well can be a barrier. So let's look at this case study, and that would be consumer behavior. I'll try to get through this very quickly. And so here we're studying or exploring the ethnographic analysis of beauty product community. And so here the data collection involves both passive and observation forms and active participation in the discussion. So passive observation allows researchers to understand user behavior without influencing them, while active participation enables deeper engagement and better gaps for a grasp of user sentiment. You know what? Let me do this. Okay, tell you what. We will start next week. We'll talk about the case studies if we can. Otherwise, that is it for today. So let's see that. So that's it for today. Does anyone have any questions? Is everybody good? Give me a thumbs up if you're good and you're still alive. All right. Thank you guys. Have a great, thank you all. Have a great rest of your day and a great weekend, and I will see you next time in class. And for